Senator Crapo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to return to the question that the chairman raised earlier with regard to the implementation of the Volcker rule and the problem that we see with the July 21st deadline. Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke recently stated before the Senate Banking Committee and the House Financial Services Committee that the interagency Volcker rule will likely not be ready by the July date. And I think you confirmed that's a likelihood today, Mr. Tarullo, although you say you'd like to keep working toward that objective. He also said that we certainly don't expect people to obey a rule that doesn't exist, and that the agencies will certainly make sure that firms have all the time they need to respond. And again, Mr. Tarullo, you've said today that you think that somehow the agencies have got to address this issue in the process. But it's not that simple. The problem is that this section of the Dodd-Frank Act is self-executing and has an effective date of July 21st, irrespective of whether the final rules are in place. And market participants are understandably concerned about what they should do on the July 21st deadline if the agencies have not been able to coordinate effectively and promulgate a final rule. I know that there's been a 2-year conformance period raised, and some have suggested that that should allay all concerns. But many commenters have raised the discrepancy between the 2-year conformance period in the statute and the pending proposed rule, which states that the agencies expect full compliance as soon as practicable after the effective July 21st date. A lot of folks are raising concerns about the fact that legal experts are advising their clients now that if the July 21st date arrives and we don't have a final promulgated rule, that the banks, in order to be safe, are going to have to start shutting down significant securitization activities that are expected to be authorized in the rule, and that we could have significant disruption in the market in the United States. As a result of that concern, earlier today, Senators Warner, Corker, Toomey, Hagan, and Carper and I have introduced legislation, bipartisan legislation, that corrects this aspect of the statute and simply links the effective date of the Volcker rule to 12 months after the issuance of a final rule. It just changes 2 words in the statute, so that instead of saying the earlier of, it says the later of the dates, which would provide the kind of clarity to the marketplace, and I would think provide the kind of support to the agencies as they try to move forward with these deadlines looming, to enable us to calm the waters and proceed more effectively with the rulemaking process. Mr. Tarullo, I'd like to ask you first whether you see any concern or problem with this kind of legislation, and whether it would be helpful or not.
Well, I think, Senator, we should be able to address the concerns through 2 means. One is, as I mentioned earlier, guidance provided by the agencies. And this, by the way, is not unprecedented. I mean, there have been occasions in the past where a statutory provision by its terms takes effect and the implementing regulation has not yet been enacted. So there is some precedent for the way this can be dealt with, and that would deal with any gap between the promulgation of the rule and July 21st. With respect to the applicability scope of the conformance period, what it covers and what it doesn't cover, again, I think that we have the authority, we the Federal Reserve Board have the authority to change that conformance period statute in order to clarify the questions which have arisen, as I say, because I think that when we promulgated the conformance period regulation, we didn't know what the substantive regulation was going to look like. So that's a long way of saying I think we can deal with both issues here without legislation, and we'll try to go ahead and do so regardless of what legislative path is followed.
Is there any reason why legislation wouldn't assist in that process, though? I mean, I understand that you think you can clarify everything, but the statute is self-executing. Why wouldn't it be helpful for us to have that clarification made?
Well, so I think you alluded to this. The self-execution, the statute says it becomes effective, but then in the next subsection it says the activities need to be conformed within the conformance period that is provided for in the statute. So I think that the the coverage can be achieved through that mechanism, but there may be other readings of the statute. That's the one I think that we're proceeding under.
Mr. Walsh, could you comment on the same issue?
Certainly, Senator. I mean, as to the logic of what's being proposed, the suggestion is to do in this area what the statute does in other areas, which is link the application to a time period after issuance of a regulation. But it is certainly true that there are a variety of places in the Dodd-Frank Act where we will have to deal among the agencies and administratively to deal with problems of this kind, and I don't disagree with Governor Tarullo that we will make the effort to make sure that the banks both understand, those affected understand what our expectations are, and the conformance period does provide a period of breathing room, if you will, during which banks are expected to comply.
Would the clarification of the statute's impact of the nature that I just described have any negative impact on the rulemaking process and the conformance period that the agencies are working on?
Well, there is always the pressure of deadlines to keep people focused, and the suggestion that we continue to work toward this deadline, even though it is approaching and seems increasingly challenging to meet. But the pressure of deadlines is a meaningful pressure.
But a deadline that is executing a rule that hasn't been created yet may be a difficult deadline that creates legal difficulties in the marketplace. It seems to me that we would not be changing the deadline of the implementation of the rule, which it's already been acknowledged is going to be passed without meeting that deadline. And the question remains, as I see it, why would we not want to try to fix the problem and make it clear legally that there is not going to be the kind of disruption of our markets that could happen if the statute self-executes? Mr. Wells.
Well, Senator, if I mean, Congress has set the deadlines. If Congress changes the deadline, we will adapt to the change. But in the meantime, we'll continue to try to work toward both meeting the deadline and providing guidance so that during this period of what will be hopefully a brief period of potential uncertainty, that those affected will understand how to respond.
Thank you.
Senator Berkeley.